Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I have a question for you before I get started, and the question is how many times you've learned a new word and you forget it the next day. Well, don't worry, because it happens to everyone, and even it happens to me myself. It happens because I'm learning French, and I remember one upon a time I've learned the word mon amour, which in French mon amour, and which means in English my darling, and the next day I couldn't even remember it, how to pronounce it. Well, it's a bit ridiculous, but it sounds familiar. And learning vocabulary can sometimes feel like chasing after a butterfly, while catching one word only for another to fly away. But what if I told you there are ways to make those words stick in your brain? And in today's video, I'm just going to participate about 10 techniques, 10 best ways that I've implemented myself, and hopefully you'll be able to apply it to yourself. And I've implemented in French to learn vocabulary, and I promise you they are going to make a massive difference. I know how frustrating it can be to learn new words, have them like slip away after a while. That's exactly why this video is all about, and we are going to talk about some powerful techniques that will not only help you to remember those tricky words that you actually is struggling to learn, or to remember it every day. This will help you to remember these tricky words, but also to make them stick in your brain in the long-term memory. Whether you are a beginner or you've been learning English or any language for quite a while, this video is for you. And trust me, if you follow these techniques, if you follow these tips, you've implemented yourself, you will see a huge difference in your vocabulary retention. So now, without further ado, let's get started. And please, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and make sure that you click the bell so you don't miss any new videos. I post every Sundays, so weekly videos, so please make sure that you click the bell so you don't miss an upload. So now let's get started. The first technique is flashcards. Well, not really, but you have to hear me out. Flashcards are one of the most effective ways that you can actively, engage with the vocabulary. So now, like, for example, I will show you an example. So now I've got a lot of flashcards. I'm a very, like a person who use flashcards. Whether it's vocabulary, revision, whatever, I have to use flashcards. So now I've got 3 types of flashcards. So, different colours, but there's one type, is quite different than each other. So now I've got this type, and in a second, I'm going to show you a word, which is this word, for example, benevolent, okay? So now this word benevolent, for example, the reason I'm showing you these flashcards because it's a very, very effective way that you can be able to learn vocabulary quite easily. So now, for example, I've shown you the word benevolent. So now if you use the flashcards and you found a new word and you've written it down, for example, benevolent. So, and on the back of the flashcards, on the another side, you need to write the meaning of the word, okay? So, and you stick it somewhere in the wall, in your room, whatever place that you found it comfortable. So you stick it there, and but don't show the meaning. You stick the meaning in the back and the words in the front, so you can only see the words, because if you see the words, probably you can remember the meaning, what does it mean and what does it stand for. Let's say benevolent. Benevolent is kind-hearted person, very kind person, very well person. So That's the meaning actually. So like the meaning that you stick it there and don't show the meaning, only show the words so that you can remember it. And this is another type as well. Whatever you found it comfortable, you can use it. So that one and this one. So they are quite useful. I highly recommend it if you want to learn vocabulary. You're learning vocabulary and you can't even remember it at the same time. I think these two types of flashcards are the best way to be able to practice your vocabulary all of the time. When you like memorizing, when you are creating flashcards, you are not just memorizing a word, and it means that you are actively working with the words. Okay, you're actively working with the words, which helps you stick. Here are the cool trick. Okay, for example, you can use the apps like Anki or Quizlet. These apps, use something called spaced repetition. That means the more often you review a word over time, the better it sticks in your memory. And how often should you review these flashcards? Well, I would highly recommend The Secret. You want to review them just before you forget them, and that's a perfect, sweet spot way to stick it in your brain and almost forget these words. Lock it back and try to make these flashcards on your daily habits. And the second techniques in terms of how to remember vocabulary, how to learn vocabulary, is contextual learning. A contextual learning. So now in terms of contextual learning, let's talk about contextual learning. Here are the things, just memorizing the words. Word generous doesn't tell you much about how to use it. But when you place it in a sentence like, my friend is so generous, she always donates to charity. Well, suddenly it has a meaning and in the context, because it teaches you how to use it in the context. When you encounter a new vocabulary, try to learn it in the real life context. This could be through the sentences, conversations, or stories. Why? Because I think when words are tied to real experiences, they are far easier to remember. And of course, plus it helps you to understand how to use the words accurately in different situations. So I want you to pause the video at this moment and take a word that you've learned recently and write it down with a sentence, and think of a situation where you would use these words that you've learned recently, and let me know in the comments section below what is the word. I would love to know. Moving up to the second techniques. So now this is kind of, I would say, this is my favorite way, is word maps. Word maps, these are the fantastic for connecting words together. For example, take words happy, for example. You can draw a map with the words like joyful, excited, content, and cheerful, delighted, and all connected. These words are related to each other, helps you to remember them better. Because I think words map is the best way to learn, because this is the favourite way I use it all of the time, from revision, learning vocabulary, whatever. And the number 4 is very tricky way, but mnemonics. So these are mnemonics. These are the memory tricks, the ways that you can trick your memory basically, and it can help you to remember tough words. For example, the words benevolent that we've mentioned earlier. You might imagine a person with a big heart handing out a gift. The visual image of heart will remind you of a kindness and benevolent. So benevolent is a warm-hearted person, a very kind person. So is benevolent. And moving up to number 5 is regular practice. Regular practice is crucial to make new vocabulary stick in your head. You have to use You have to use it regularly. Whether you are writing a journal, having a conversation, or even thinking in English or whatever language you're learning. And I think use those new words that you've learned recently and practice it regularly. And your brain will automatically will start to recognize and remember them faster and put it in the autopilot. And autopilot, like without even struggling to learn it, it will automatically remember it. And number 6 is chunking. So this is another favourite way. This is chunking is which is all about grouping similar words together. For example, learn words related with food like apple, banana, carrots, whatever. Grouping the words that are related to food, specific foods, that will help you to have something in common. It's easier to recall them later when you need them back. And number 7 is, of course, native language connections. And native language connections, sometimes connecting new words to your native language can make them easier to remember. Well, for example, if the word library in English is similar to the words, for example, in your language or whatever language you're learning, that can make easier to connect it in your mind. For example, now, as I mentioned earlier, the word mon amour in French, I know it means darling in English or my darling in English. So make these connections and hopefully it will help you to learn vocabulary and remember it quite quickly. And number 8 is, of course, regular review. A regular review, one of the most important parts of vocabulary retention is reviewing regularly. It's easy to learn something and forget it after a few days, and it's not only you, it happens to everyone. But if you revisit words you've learned after a few hours, then the day, then a week, it will stick. But if you just leave it for about a month, 2 months, that's not going to help you to learn. And of course, regular review is important. Please make sure that you revise what you've learned. I suggest reviewing your vocabulary once a day for the first week, then once a week for the following weeks, and then remember then, like when you review, actively recall the words is rather than just reading them over. And this helps you to reinforce the memory and stick them in the long-term memory. And before last, we have media exposure. Well, let's talk about immersion. So one of the best ways to learn and remember vocabulary is, of course, by immersing yourself in like TV shows, listening to podcasts, read articles, or even listening to music. I think this is the more best way. Is a better way to just stick vocabulary into your head, and I think it will be easier to remember them very, very quickly. The more you listen to people talking, the more you listen to different accents, you will be able to remember vocabulary, whatever vocabulary that you've come across. And don't ignore it. Look up and try to write it down and understand it, and of course try to use it yourself later. And number 10 is, of course, teach others. Well, this is actually the best way. I think if you have a friend, a family member, I think teaching others is a fantastic way to solidify what you've learned. When you teach someone a word, you explain when you explain them the meaning, you are forcing your brain to recall the words and understand it deeply. So find a friend or family member or even someone online, partner, and start teaching them the vocabulary that you've learned, whatever language, and you'll be amazed at how much more you remember when you explain it to someone else. So I think those are my 10 best ways. I've implemented it myself, and of course giving you to apply it, because it's the best way to to learn vocabulary. It's kind of pointless if you learn something and you don't apply it. So now there you have it, there you go, 10 techniques to help you remember English vocabulary like a pro. So now try these methods and see which ones work best for you. And remember, consistency is the key. You don't have to use all of them, and the more you practice and the more you engage yourself in the language, the better you will learn and the better vocabulary you will learn at the same time. So if you found this video helpful, you found these techniques helpful, you like what you saw today, please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe, and of course click the notification bell so you don't miss any regular videos, tips, pronunciation or British English, all about it, expressions and phrases, whatever. So if you have any questions, you have any recommendations, to let me know in the comment section below. And please let me know what's your favourite strategy, what's your favourite technique. Leave it in the comment section below. I would love to know. And that's it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers everyone, take care, bye bye.